And we are live.
Thank you, Manu. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 20th episode of Bangladesh and the World, a podcast hosted by Bangladesh America Alliance. And it is our pleasure to welcome you all. And we have a distinguished panel of guests today. And also, we just want to make sure that we're going to just give a few minutes for people to gather. So I'll just ask Manu to let us know when we have critical mass and we should start the podcast.
I think we are only missing Fahim. Other than that, we are good to go.
That's fine. I mean, it's an informal adda, so everybody can join in later as well. So first of all, and what I want to say is I want to first introduce uh, to everyone Bangladesh America Alliance's newly elected co-chairs, Samia Shiraz and Abir Chaudhry, and we're very excited to have them as our co-chairs. And then we have our guests. I will let the guests introduce themselves. I would not be able to do justice to their with the introduction. So first, Samia and Abir, if you can just tell us about yourself a little bit, and then maybe we can go around the table just as a way of introduction. And by the way, I'm Shahid Iqbal. I'm the executive member. I'm one of the executive members of Bangladesh America Alliance.
All right,
Samia.
I'll go first. My name is Abir. I have been an activist focusing on human rights since my college days, but I do really care about Bangladesh a lot, and I hope to stay connected with the diaspora and with Bangladesh affairs going forward. And thank you all, and also the executive board for this opportunity. Looking forward to this year. Off to you, Samia.
You're on mute.
Hi, I'm Samia. Along with Abir, I am also a co-chair at the Bangladesh America Alliance. Very happy to be here. Just like Abir, activism has been something that I've been very passionate about. And given the events of last year, July, that's really kind of galvanized my personal, initiatives towards doing what I can in trying to tell positive stories in Bangladesh, trying to improve advocacy from the lens of a member of the diaspora. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm extremely grateful for our guests here today, as well as all those who've supported us since our inception earlier this year.
Thank you. Maybe I can go whoever is on first on my screen. John.
Great. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here and to see so many friends gathered. My name is John Danilowitz. I'm a retired U.S. State Department and Foreign Service officer. The best thing about being a retired Foreign Service officer is that now I can actually say what I think rather than representing the U.S. government, which I definitely do not. I'm currently the acting president of a small human rights organization based in Washington, D.C. called Right to Freedom. And we can talk about our work a little bit. Happy to collaborate with Bangladesh America Alliance and others, and looking forward to tonight's discussion.
Thank you, John. Shamaruk Mohidin.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, and congratulations to the new co-chairs, Samia and Abir. I'm happy to be here to discuss some critical issues that we're all talking about as Bangladeshis and Bangladeshi Americans. And my background is in bilateral relations between the US and Bangladesh. For a long time, I've worked on dialogue between the two countries with a special focus on business and trade issues, as well as labor rights issues. Played a role in shaping some of the labor standards related issues regarding US trade with Bangladesh. And also have focused on women's economic empowerment. It's an issue I care about a lot. And really interested to see what kind of democratic reforms can lead to a better path forward for Bangladesh. And I think that it's really a great time to be having these discussions. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your time. And Rumi Ahmed.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, those in US, and good morning in Bangladesh. My name is Rumi Ahmed. Formally here, I'm representing BRAIN, Bangladesh Research Analysis Information Network, is a platform of Bangladeshi diaspora Bangladeshis to research, archive, and do intellectual activism on Bangladesh issues. That's my formal identity. Informally, I am a lifelong student of Bangladesh politics, starting from my early childhood memories of post 71, 72 euphoria, days of euphoria 72, then 74 famine. I personally remember 75, 15 August, 7 November, I witnessed 1980s anti-Arab movement. I was participant. Then 90s, then 2000, then last 2024, and the post 2024 August 5th recalibration of Bangladesh politics. So I am learning with Bangladesh politics every single day. Every single day I learn new things. I am a continue to be student, and every single day I get surprised how different the expectation we can see in our political landscape.
Thank you all for joining. You've been our great allies and friends, and we have worked with you all on everything pro Bangladesh, to be honest, non-partisan pro Bangladesh activities. So thanks for your time and your partnerships. Mainul?
Hi, this is Minal. Everybody knows me from my posts on X. I'm not an activist in that sense, Abir and Samia mentioned, but was always curious about Bangladesh or Bangladesh related issues. Having been in USA for last 20 plus years, I kind of galvanized my interest in pro Bangladesh or Bangladesh 2.0 initiatives since July Revolution, and that got me involved in the X and other media. And obviously, I passionately follow what's happening in Bangladesh. And as an avid uh, patriot Bangladeshi, I always constantly strive to do better for my country. And here I am. I'm part of one of the executive member of Bangladesh America Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mainal. And I also should mention that our founding co-chair Farhana Sultana, who has been in the forefront of fight against disinformation and all the things we've done, she sends her regret. She could not join today's podcast. Just acknowledging her. Um, I This is going to be an informal adda, but to tee it off, I'll ask one question and then we can probably all chime in. But first, I want to pay homage to those July martyrs, and to be honest, those who were injured, those who suffered through July. Because of them, we came together. Because of them, we have this platform to speak whatever we want to speak. I think we need to acknowledge that. So thank you to them with deep respect. The other thing is, so first question is like July ushered into us a sense of like an enthusiasm, optimism, and also a sense of responsibility. The things that we were expecting post July in a new Bangladesh, where the trials, the reforms, and the election. And now, after 16 months, we have a verdict. The reforms have been recommended. We have a referendum on the reforms, and the election date has been set. So, my question to all of you: you've been involved since, like even before that. How you are all feeling regarding these issues? And anyone can start on these things. Please, whoever wants to start. Otherwise, I'll start picking.
I can jump in.
Sure.
So I'm a student of history. I'm not a academic. I'm not a political scientist. And I know one of the issues that gets debated a lot is whether or not what happened in July and August of 2024 was a revolution or not. I'll leave that to academics to decide. But for me, it's important to think about the moment of what was happening in July and August. And for me, it was a revolutionary moment, even if the revolution ended up transitioning to something else very soon thereafter. And I say that in answer to your question because somebody who's read a lot of history, I look at what's happened in Bangladesh in the context of what's happened in other similar situations. And I think it's inevitable in retrospect that if you look at any post-revolutionary period, you'll go through different phases. And again, I think it's inevitable that there'll be a high level of enthusiasm, optimism, exuberance in those immediate days after the change, and then there'll be reality will set in. So you'll end up in a place different than maybe where you thought or hoped you would go. So I tend to focus on what's been accomplished and what is coming or what may be coming, rather than spend too much time kind of crying over spilled milk. So in that respect, just to kind of wrap things up and hand over to others, I think the interim government had three critical tasks. The first task was to deal with the issues related to accountability and justice for what had happened, not just in July and August, but previously. And I think this is where the verdict comes in, that it's a step toward that, an important first step, showing the commitment to accountability and justice, which will have to continue into the next government as well. I think the second was to put in place at least the beginnings of reforms to help ensure that what had happened before wouldn't be able to happen again. Again, nobody thought that the interim government would be able to fully complete the reform agenda. That also will be left to the next government. But I think with the July charter, we can see that the interim government has put things, I think, on a better path. And then the final, and in some ways the most critical task that the interim government has had and still has before it, is holding free and fair and credible elections, which will hand power to an elected government. So that's going to happen within, I guess, now the next, 2.5 months. And I think that's where my focus is. So I guess just to sum up, I feel still that Bangladesh is on the right path. Certainly, it's on a much better path and trajectory than it was before July of 2024. More perhaps could have been done. But I think what's most important is to acknowledge what's been done and then to keep the momentum going forward.
Yes, here, let me interject, let me chime in here. I completely echo John's feelings about July-August movement. And there may be some academic debate, it is revolution versus mass public upsurge or movement. We have yet to recognize the width, and the depth, the broadness of the movement. We have history of 1971, we have history of 1990, but July 2024, August 2024 is probably the broadest spectrum of mass movement. Never ever in the history of this region, so many remote district, remote upajala, thana, village level, urban centers, posh, elite neighborhoods, they all got involved. This has not been yet well documented. This has not been well written down in a book or documentary, but this is the movement that has crossed any previous experience we have had, not only in this country, in the region or globally, that not only city centers, every single upajala center has been involved. People rose up everywhere, Bogura, Hobbyganj, Borishal, Khulla, every single place. I remember getting a text message from my friend in Hobbyganj on August 4th. He sent a one-line text message. Hobbyganj is free today on August 4th. The Amalik and police, they have left Hobbyganj on August 4th. So it is a freedom. It is a freedom from 16 years of draconian autocracy, and it is yet to be well appreciated its width and breadth. Thank you.
Yeah, I can also chime in on this topic. So I agree with both John and Rumi Bhai, and think that there is a lot to do in terms of reforms. Obviously, I think that we've made some progress. There is more to be done. The runway to the elections is very short, so we have to also manage our expectations in terms of what's possible before the elections and continue the work as citizens to hold the next government accountable to following through on these reforms, right? So it's an ongoing process. But I think for me, the biggest thing is that the culture of fear that we had in the past, where the civil society were not speaking up in the face of some very obviously autocratic moves by the government, and this whole culture of fear, not just in terms of media speaking up, but just anyone, anywhere speaking up about anything that is negative about the government. I feel like that's been broken, and we needed this interim period for people to use their muscles, their dissent muscles, to be able to kind of speak out in the face of any kind of thing that they perceive as wrongdoing by the government. So I think that it's been a very sort of healthy direction for Bangladesh for people to start to even criticize the interim government for things that they feel were not up to par in terms of how to run the country or proceed with the reforms, etc. So I think that that's been great. And I hope that this is not something that we lose, because I think there are other countries that have gone through revolutions as well. Like I was just in Tunisia; they had their revolution, Nepal, others, and I think that sometimes people have this moment of jubilance and then they sort of get back into their humdrum ways of living and stop paying attention to what the government is doing. So I hope that people will stay vigilant and continue to monitor sort of what the government is doing and holding people accountable. So I think now there is a fear that there didn't used to be before, that people can rise up from every quarter and they can express their dissent. So I think that's a major change, and I hope we can hold on to that and just be more conscious citizens, not just in terms of showing up to vote, but just in terms of monitoring the everyday activities of the government and just exercising our voice there.
Yeah, great. One thing I had to add on here, I didn't mention in my previous comment, how I grade, how I evaluate current interim government. I have mentioned it earlier in cricket terms. This government has played the role of a great Finisher. They are ending the innings in a class. They are not great opening batsmen. At opening, they have a lot of missteps, but every single department law, and other investment opportunities, this government will finish in style and will be successful in many ways. This government will do election and other reforms that we want. This government has to be praised. Like the way Hasina verdict came up within 1 year and a half year, it is unbelievable. 1990, when we had the major mass uprising, our governments could not try Ershad. It took them years, whole decades, and they're still playing Ershad. There's still trial going on for Ershad. He died. So they did that trial, they finished the trial, they finished the law and judiciary separation. They have done job with the airport and ports and other things. So this government is finishing very well, And I don't expect, we as a Bengali nation, we are strong believer of shortcut. We want everything to be fixed overnight. Some hero come and fix overnight. No, whatever happens, one step at a time. If you can ensure a caretaker government, a fair every 5 years, government steps down, a caretaker government, that will be a greatest achievement we can get. I don't want it to fix everything in one night. Nothing happens in one night. A reform happens slowly, painfully, painstakingly, and we have to be patient. But whatever happens, I'm happy.
Thank you. Let me just take this opportunity to invite, introduce another one of our guests. Fine, welcome. I'm sorry, it's Friday morning, your time.
Thank you.
I know it's difficult to join, but thanks for joining. And Fine wears many hats, like activist, reformist, and everything. Fine, would you introduce yourself, and then I'll let you know the discussion we are having.
Sure. Thanks, Shahed, for inviting me in this podcast. I'm Fahim Mashur. I am kind of by profession as an entrepreneur. I have been in the technology field for last 25 years. After August, like a lot of us, I'm also kind of involved in a lot of civil society activism. We have started one platform called Voice for Reform. I am also an active member of Brain, which was kind of founded by Rumi Bhai. And also with a number of these kind of civil society platforms, we have created another kind of umbrella organization, Nagorik Coalition, which has been very active in recent times in a lot of issues, including constitution reform and other kind of civil activism. Thanks.
Thank you. And the question that everybody is discussing is like, after 16 months post-July, we have a verdict, trials, reforms, elections. We have reform recommendations and election dates, and a referendum looming. How are you feeling, and how is everybody feeling? So I'll let others continue the discussion, and you can chime in when you feel like it.
Sure.
So yes, please continue the discussion. I know, Rumi, I don't know if you are finished or not.
Now, Fahim, yeah, sure. Fahim has been the man on the ground, has been doing shuttle diplomacy. Bangladesh, Hasina regime has completely decimated our civil society, completely gone. Now, Fahim on the ground has taken the charge to rebuild the civil society through not only coalition, brain, and innovation collaboration. So we must thank Fahim for his tireless, selfless work to rebuild and restructure the civil society Bangladesh didn't have in last 16 years. We all thank you as a nation to Fahim.
Thanks, but I think a lot of us here are also very active in those platforms as well. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. So I don't know who's speaking. Samia, Abir, you want to chime in into the topics we're discussing?
Yeah, sure. I will go. So, I will admit that pre-July 2024, I had a sense of cynicism and somewhat a sense of hopelessness about, whether I have a stake in the future of Bangladesh. The reason being, I feel like as a member of the civic society, I had no contribution because I could make no contributions. I could not speak my mind. I was not happy with the direction the country was going for a variety of reasons, but I felt rather helpless. So under all of these circumstances, I would consider myself somebody who was incredibly disaffected. I was a disaffected citizen. July for me personally was a game changer for a number of reasons. And I like to think that this was a similar experience for many people. But one thing, going back to how kind of the interim government, the level of international engagement that they were able to bring, and attention that they were able to bring to the situation in Bangladesh, that was massively amazing. It was honestly, this, massively good diplomacy and good strategic kind of actions over there. It was also a very pivotal time where I felt like we were able to have conversations across multiple facets. So yes, there's politics, there's constitutional reforms, there's trade, but it was the first time in my lifetime, at least, that we were as a nation talking intentionally about things like the environment, about women's issues, TBD on kind of the outcomes of those, but we were talking about that, right? We were talking about religious issues. We were talking about so many other aspects of being a Bangladeshi citizen that were sort of left to an elite class. And so for me, the fact that we were able to quote unquote sort of democratize our own involvement in these conversations, for me, that was very pivotal. And then finally, I just think that the fact that we saw so much engagement from the grassroots and from the younger generation, for me, this has been a once in a lifetime event to witness and to, in a very small way, be a part of. So I think in every sense of the word, this is revolutionary. Maybe not in the textbook case, but it is certainly something that in history, in at least our history.
Thanks, Samia. So anybody you want to chime in now? Or
No, it's okay. Like I was hearing, but I can just I actually shared the kind of optimism what Samia was actually saying. But at the same time, I think we also need to understand that we are just like in the 15th or 16th month of this kind of like change or revolution, whatever we call. Emotion is still very high. But we have seen such things even in our kind of in 90s. Like Rumi Bhai can actually has much more better history than us. So there are a lot of optimism, but very soon what we see when political government actually takes over, like a lot of frustration kind of steps in, and we felt that we have lost opportunity. So I just don't want to kind of want that history to kind of repeat itself. So, but I think one thing has actually changed from 90s, even in 111 and from now. I think this whole social media thing is very, it was not there. Like social media was not there in 90s and even 2007, 2008. Now there is social media, and most importantly, I think now there is a very active NRB and diaspora community. So with these two things, I think that is the difference that can actually change. And I tell a lot of other people that whether it will be uh, politics as usual, I want to feel that it will not be politics as usual, because like I'm though I'm what Mumibai was saying, I'm at the ground in civil society activism, but I'm not very hopeful about Bangladeshi civil society because the number is very low. But I am much more hopeful about people like you who are kind of staying across the world and who don't have any direct interest in lot of vested interest that lot of people like us can actually get into tapped into. So you are you are the real vanguard of the kind of future democracy, and if you remain very vocal, like you have been in last I would say last 24 months before even July, that is the real kind of ray of hope for me, because your like activism is something like, and this is something that even in our brain threads we discuss to what extent the NRBs can actually contribute. I actually don't agree with that. I think NRBs has a huge role to contribute in the future Bangladesh, future democracy, because your voice is kind of much more hard because of the social media thing. So that's why I really want people like you who are very much in number as well now, and in North America, in Japan, in Australia, in Europe. So they you have to be very active post February. So then we really, if you actually give up, then there is no hope. So that's why I really want NRBs and diaspora community to be active, and we also have a lot of good friends like John and others who have been actually trying to bridge between these communities. So this is probably the greatest strength.
Yeah, I think like I just need to say one thing. Samia brought up something very interesting. I think like this time around, what happened was our social and political activism that is entrenched in the social stratas, like elite, middle class, and like even on the ground people. They have always been disconnected, separated. This time around, due to social media, everything has been connected. I mean, like I'm here in the US and I can actually be contacted by like kids on the ground. They're on the streets, they're protesting, right? So that is that connectivity, I think, culminated into a force that is like that is and a strength. And it is important for us to like harness that and stay together and united for the things that are actually matter for Bangladesh. And that's where beyond anything, reforms are especially important. And for me, the reforms are commissions. That is the biggest achievement of the interim government. Now the implementation part, and there are many confusions and questions about how those will be implemented or not implemented. And as a whole, those recommended, there were some issues that people had, like this were not complete. So I would like everyone's opinion and what you think of the reforms and their implementation, and what are we going to achieve in terms of reforms. I think they're phenomenal reforms recommended, but will we be able to really implement them fully and benefit from them?
Yeah, about social media thing that we are so much hyping social media, its role. I personally do not think that is anything new this time around. Social media existed in different form in different centuries and ages. And during the French Revolution time, there were those incendiary orators. Those orators, they will be joining in the public square, give incendiary, rebel-rousing speech that led to the Jacobins' guillotine revolution. I remember during Ershad era, 1980s, Ershad had a scandal with a mistress living in UK named Miss Mariam. I remember they had the secular style printed stories and photos used to be hand delivered at bazaars and stores and meetings. So social media existed in its own form in 80s in French time. Now it has its own different form, electronic form there. Social media at the same time giving us, connecting us, at the same time social media giving us very very negative influence of some incendiary YouTubers. Those are harming our society. So social media has its ups and downs. Social media existed for centuries in its own different forms.
Yeah, no, I think that there are pros and cons. I think that there are things that happen on social media that allow people to congregate at really important times. So we saw in that case of the Arab Spring, social media played such a great role, right, in terms of helping people connect. So I think that you're right, Rumipai, that it was sort of people connecting in different ways. But I think we should also keep in mind that when things reach a head, when people are starting to congregate and things are getting to a point where it's a make or break situation, like it's really important to have social media. So for example, with the internet blackout that we had during the uprising, like that actually was a major make or break situation, right? So it kind of galvanized the diaspora to do even more. So I think that it can kind of play that role as well. Like if you take it away, like that's something now people won't tolerate. Like in Nepal's case as well, like people won't tolerate something that will not keep you connected. So I think that even in terms of the reforms, like having organizations like Starlink, no matter what I think of Starlink's founder, I think that getting more and more people connected is a good thing. And when it comes to these moments that are really important, like where people are just need to be able to kind of take the country in a new direction, I think that social media is just playing a really key role in a very different way nowadays that people are writing about it. So I think it's worth mentioning. But I think on the topic of reform, Shahid Bhai, that you mentioned, one more thing that I do want to underscore is that I feel that the commissions were very, very late in proposing their reforms. And I think that there is a misconception by the public that the reform process didn't start until the commissions produced these papers, etc. Right? But in fact, the reforms started even before the commissions were fully formed. So some of the reforms, some of it was actually just saving the situation, right? So it was right after the kind of after the August 5th, like just kind of balancing the situation to make sure that the banking sector doesn't collapse. There's peace and stability being restored. So there are things that were just collapsing that were managed, but also some reforms that already started that we don't really hear about. So I think that it's worth taking stock of the reforms that have happened even outside of what the commissions have proposed. And sometimes these are not sexy reforms that everyone loves to talk about, but things like making the tender processes kind of on technology based. So it's kind of more transparent and you can see who's bidding for which tenders, things like that. These are not exciting things to talk about, but they're really fundamental to creating a better democracy, right? And making sure that even for the tender process, like some of the reforms are focusing on bringing in local content, for example, and before it was all focused on like supporting international companies more, especially Indian companies. So I think that some of these reforms people haven't even heard about, but are really important, like the banking sector reforms. People probably don't know much in depth about them, but really important. And recently, the labor law reforms that have happened that have given investors more confidence. I talked to a lot of businesses that are in the US that are also feeling like some of the economic reforms are helping with their investor confidence. So some of these things that are not related to the judiciary or the election commission or other things that are being talked about a lot right now are also really important areas of reforms that have already happened. And even in the terms of judiciary, like recently there have been moves to make the lower court more independent. So I think we have moved forward on a number of reform areas. I care a lot about women's rights, and I think issues like having a definition around what's rape and like having a bigger punishment for rape, et cetera. Those are also really important reforms that we haven't really spoken about, but a lot of it has been already in progress. So I think that's just one other thing I wanted to mention.
The thing that, Melina, I think Shamaruk, I think you bring up a really interesting point around, kind of the depth of reforms in certain sectors, right? So as you kind of allude to, reforms in the judiciary, reforms in the banking sector, et cetera. And kind of tying that to Rumipai's comment around social media, one of the interesting sort of things, so having lived in the US during the Obama administration, one of the kind of comments that were made sort of as President Obama kind of stepped down was that it was filled with, the administration was filled with a lot of policy wonks, and they did good work. But the problem about policy wonks is they were not able to distill the benefits of the complexity of the work that they do to the common man, right? And so I think in the Bangladesh context, I think we have an interesting, potentially interesting kind of effort challenge on our hands is how do we leverage social media in its very advanced current form to kind of distill this sort of messaging down, like where can we play a part in it? Because I do think that we're never going to be we're never going to be able to really distill, okay, what were banking reforms in sort of these smaller towns in Bangladesh, or like to somebody who hasn't paid attention. So I think it's like an interesting challenge for those who are involved, active on social media, to potentially think about how they can play a part in that. Because I think it's a problem that runs across different countries, not just in Bangladesh, but I've witnessed that in the US as well. So just a comment there that I definitely agree with what you're saying.
Okay, I am in the spirit of free flow of conversation. I know the moderators have questions and time limit. Let me throw a question to the panel. I just wanted to know, we discuss about the positive effects of the July movement, interim government. Can you point out one negative impact of this July movement, July revolution, and aftermath? What negativity? What net negative we have had in the aftermath or because of the movement?
I have a comment on that. I think the mob issue that we have been seeing, that's been one of those core negative areas. That's like a negative side effect, because when the power of social media allows you to congregate people on core issues, but again, if you are irresponsible, as we have seen with some of the mob related violence, it can be leveraged for nefarious purposes. So that's been one of those clearly negative issues that have also come up as part of this revolution. Not, I'm not saying revolutions don't have this, as Rumi Bhai was mentioning about the French Revolution and the Jacobins and some of that type of issues expected in a post-revolutionary era. But the cultural impact of thinking that if I can get together a mob to utilize force or fear to force through some changes, I think that's a concern, at least for me, because it does challenge the foundational democratic framework that we have. If mob starts to question, bring in, and force through some things, not through a democratic framework, but through violence or fear. Yeah, that's all I want to add.
I think there's one other thing I can say, like Rui, where you brought up a very like a thought-provoking question, right? We are all enthusiastic. We are all happy with the changes. But one thing I think is a big crisis for Bangladesh is the vacuum that has been created in the political landscape. When there's a vacuum and there are vested groups will try to occupy that vacuum, that space, and then
I think you froze, Shahid Bhai.
I think we can somebody else. John, you have something to say? John? Any negative?
Yeah. So what I would say, the biggest cost, maybe not a negative, but the biggest cost has been on the economic side. Not that the interim government didn't take necessary steps to stabilize the situation and to prevent the financial sector collapse, which was looming, but more from the perspective of Bangladesh's international competitiveness. As we all know, that investment capital, seeks the greatest return. It seeks stability. And just by nature of the tremendous changes that have taken place in Bangladesh, a lot of potential investors and economic partners have been sitting on the sideline. So hopefully this will be a temporary phenomenon. And as the new government comes in, once there's the clarity from an election, you'll see some of those flows start again. But just to take a step back and to touch on something that Sami and others had mentioned as well, I agree 100% in terms of the importance of communication now and in the future. And for me, and I'm often asked to try to explain Bangladesh to people who don't follow Bangladesh as closely, as I have. So you try to simplify it and break it down into kind of the key elements. So for me, there's a clear dividing line in Bangladesh between those who want to take the country forward and those who want to bring it back. So I've become attracted to this concept of Bangladesh 2.0, which can mean different things to different people. But to me, it signals that something has to change, that there has to be meaningful change as a result of the sacrifices from July and August 2024. Part and parcel of that as well is the need to involve Gen Z, whether it be in the political process or in many other ways. Fahim and others have talked about civil society. The future of civil society is also going to come from these Gen Z activists. Some of them are already active, but I think more needs to be done to bring more in, particularly young women who were very much active in July and August of 2024, but have maybe faded a little bit into the background. The final thing I would say, just in terms of maybe the challenge, and maybe this gets also at something that Rumi was saying, there's a political competition coming up. There's an election, and there's going to be campaigns, and campaigns can get ugly. And I understand people jockeying for position. But one of I think the real accomplishments of the interim government was keeping the July coalition together, the political parties and others. Now, there was a cost to this. And some of the cost was that each of the elements of the coalition had their red lines. So, for example, some of I think the judicial excesses that we've witnessed, particularly as it relates to those associated with the former regime, those are very difficult to defend, and I think are frankly indefensible. The way in which some individuals have been put in prison, held on these patently false murder charges, because the government couldn't quite figure out what to do with them. And it was important to one or more member of the coalition that these people be put on ice. This is something the next government is going to have to unravel. And both for this government and for the ones that follow, the biggest challenge, I think, is going to be not taking the easy way out and relying on the shortcuts that previous governments have done when it comes to handling dissent or otherwise. So overall positive, but I think, Rumi, it's good of you to remind us that not everything has been done necessarily the right way, and there are lessons that I think we all should take from this period.
So let me give my thought. John articulated very fairly. I don't think about the issue, the economic issue, the investment issue. Everybody is holding back, waiting for some stability and long-term government. That is and I didn't think about that. That's a very important issue. What Abir mentioned, the mob. The mob is mob. Mob happens after any major movement. But what mob will do, mob will prevent a liberal democratic government. Because if a government becomes liberal democratic, tolerant to street protest, a small friendly police, not brutal police, the mob will run over. So whoever comes to government next time, the police will have to be brutal. Government has to be censuring the mob. So this mob will prevent us from getting a 91 to 96 style, a friendly liberal government. That will be a long-term damage. The mob culture will give it to us. But more importantly, that is the contentious issue, but it is my negative finding of this whole thing is the rise of right religious parties in Bangladesh. The same Gen Z that has brought about the heroic July August movement, that same Gen Z has elected alt-right-wing Islamist party in all educational institutes in Bangladesh. I have no quarrel with Islamic politics. I have fought for them last 16 years. Their right to do politics, their right to do politics. And I have nothing wrong with them being elected, but I have my problem with the vast young generation of Bangladesh is becoming right-wing Islamic politician. That will not harm me. I'm an Arabi. That will harm them. That will harm the country. That will harm the country's long-term future. That will harm the country's relationship with the neighbors. that will harm the country's long-term foreign investment if country goes under right-wing religious politics. That happened, and I hope our Gen Z start. I hope they realize the path they're taking, the religious shortcut they're taking. That's not the right path for a traditionally moderate country like Bangladesh.
Rumi, can I make a comment, small comment?
Sure, I'm done.
Your original question was that what has done or what has gone negative. But this kind of rise or surge of Islamism in politics, I would not say that it is a kind of like a recent 15 months phenomena. So it has actually surged. We have not actually understood. So that is kind of, and it has surged because the failure of the liberal kind of mainstream parties, I would say, of course, Awami League is the main one, but even BNP has also been, I would say, been responsible for not upholding the liberal politics that much. So I would say that we are actually seeing something what has been in the society. Now it is kind of exposing. So, and if frankly, if BNP government comes to power in February and it fails miserably, then I think this surge will be much more. But if it can give good governance and those things, then that is probably the only way you can actually like maintain this surge, because that is something that even in India we talk about a lot of like this Hindutvadi politics. I would actually think that it is a failure of Congress government. The Congress, the secular liberal government, they have actually taken the country for granted, the society for granted for 40 years, and that has actually resulted in the like Hindutvadi politics. So if our mainstream liberal secular parties or centrist parties fail, uh, of course we can blame the others, but they need to also take some blame on this thing. That's just kind of a small point I just wanted to make.
Yeah, and if I can also chime in, Rumi bhai, on your question, I agree with Abir on the mob violence issue. I think that's kind of gone out of hand, and I think that more should be done on that. That's clearly one negative thing we need to keep an eye on. But I think one of the other things that I really feel that needs some attention is the position of the police in the country. So if you look at a country like the U.S., I think that there is a general sense of respect for the police. I mean, there have been transgressions by police here as well that have concerned people. People have taken to the streets, but overall, there's a general respect, right? I think in Bangladesh, what we've seen is that there's been a fear of the police over a very long time. That police is just an extension of the executive branch, and they're using their force in ways that are not, aligned with human rights, etc. And now there's a disdain for the police, right? So it's kind of gone from fear to disdain. But I feel like in a well-functioning democracy, you need to have a police force that's also respected. So I think one of the areas where we haven't seen a lot of reforms is actually with the police and law enforcement, and I think that should be an ongoing process. But I think that's a very key area to focus on. And the other thing is, I feel like if we can't do anything to change how the bureaucracy works in Bangladesh, because that hasn't really changed very much. There have been some reshuffle of the bureaucracy, but it's still sort of seen as a group that's taking bribes for basic services, etc. So I feel like there haven't been a lot of bureaucratic reform. So I think that's an area that I hope there'll be some change in, but I feel like there can be sort of this fatigue with the way the bureaucracy is in Bangladesh, and that can be damaging as well.
Abhi, you're mute actually.
So I just wanted to talk about one item. I know we're talking about a lot of negatives and challenges, but there has been some great positives as well, right? For the longest time, we know how corrupt Bangladesh has been and how hard it has been to implement changes, right? And usually you hear it's not possible, it's not feasible in a time frame. But during the last 16 months, we did see that it is possible, right? For example, we talk about port efficiency, right? John was talking about how getting private investments from the world is so critical for Bangladesh. And a key stoppage or key barrier to that has been infrastructure. So being able to privatize, bring in foreign investment to the port system, which is extremely corrupt. We just have to be open about that. That was said that it was impossible. It would not be possible at all. But it's happening, right? We see Danish investment coming in. We see investors from Singapore, from the Gulf nations, from all over the world showing a great amount of interest, and they are proceeding at breathtaking speed. If we talk about how in context of Bangladesh, so the recent proposal for a Chittagong port terminal going to a Danish company, the initial response was it's not possible, it's not going to happen, but it is possible, it is happening. And in a few years time, when we dramatically increase port capacity, that's going to have a huge impact, not just on export but also on overall trade, and then bringing in additional investment. So there are positives here. We are seeing live that it is possible to bring change, it is possible to break these barriers of mindset, that there it is possible. I mean, that's all I wanted to add.
Thank
Um,
you.
I want to add one more comment from Rumi Bhai's negative question. So I think in the post-revolution Bangladesh, it's a different scenario that we haven't experienced in the last 15 years or so. So on the plus side, while we have a tremendous amount of press freedom, but at the same time, there's a rise of misinformation propagated in social media. I think we face uh, past regimes misinformation, obviously Hindu plus misinformation. I think that propagated to an exponential scale that we never seen before. Obviously, in last 15 years, there is no press freedom. Obviously, social media is not that open. That's the downside. But on the plus side, I think we are able to opine the way we should have. In the previous regime, we could not do that. So if you balance it up, I think I won't say it's a negative thing, but it's at the same time it's a greater good for Bangladesh, because I think we at least have that open-ended conversation, even though there are misinformation, but we still have a way to counter that, right? So I hope in the post Bangladesh after the election, I think we should be able to maintain that kind of scenario. Although I have some doubts on that, but I think uh, let's aim to be in a better situation than we were 15 years ago. We don't have to be like now, but I think we, as a pro-Bangladeshi NRB who support Bangladesh 2.0 often, I expect that sort of transparency or accountability in some other way, if not full-fledged way. That's my take.
Thank you, Manu. You actually teed up the next topics. For the sake of time, we have two more. We'd like to touch on two more topics, but you brought up misinformation. I think that brought a lot of us together post July. So I'm just going to put Abir on the spot. You've been in the thick of the all the disinformation things recently. What is the status of the disinformation coming out from the past regime or our neighboring countries' media and influencers right now? And are we fighting enough, or are we putting out the right facts out there? What is our ability? Anybody else can chime in, but mainly Abir
Yeah.
is.
So speaking of misinformation, I think that has been one of the biggest challenges, not just for the entire Bangladeshi community, for activists who are non-aligned to any political entity, as well as the interim government. And throughout this past year, fighting this misinformation collectively, what we have learned is there is a tremendous amount of resources specifically aligned against Bangladesh, gearing towards, obviously geopolitical aspect, with India having its own particular views being forced through, but again, with the ex regime of Army League also being very active now. So I do expect that to increase exponentially as we get closer and closer to the elections. And I think it is time that we also bring the entire community together, get prepared to fight this misinformation that's coming. And we are starting to see some of that already, right? We are seeing
Right.
the usual suspects, what we see on specific social media platforms. We know who the usual suspects are, and the kind of misinformation that is AI generated. There is disinformation that is completely fabricated information. and it's coordinated. It's not haphazard. It's not random individuals with their own interests. It is coordinated. It is at an industrial scale, and I think Bangladesh is going to be one of those prime examples of how AI and in technology at scale will be leveraged. So I think this is going to be one of those critical sectors that will have real life impact, right? We have seen how misinformation and disinformation has been utilized to, for example, engage mobs or to um, severely malign Bangladesh's foreign image in terms of impacting investments, in terms of tourism, safety. For example, right now, the image that is being portrayed around the world, yes, there's instability, but it's not to the scale or to the extent that some of this misinformation portrays. So I definitely think this is something that should be at the forefront of all the activists, including the interim government as well, to take this seriously, to challenge it head on. Right? There's no alternative to that. You have to align, you have to come together, because you may have different political opinions, you may have different perspectives, but there are some core areas that I think all Bangladeshis are aligned, which is we love Bangladesh, we want to protect Bangladesh. There are a great many things that Bangladesh can do, not just for ourselves, but for the world. So at this critical junction, as we re-engage democratically, we bring back true democracy, it is very, very important that we fight on this common ground, like fight disinformation.
Thank you, Abir. I think there's definitely a call to action in what you said, and I agree. And I think we, just so everybody knows, like we have a sizable audience at X, Facebook, and YouTube tuning in live at this point, few hundred to 1,000. So everybody should take note that it is time for us to fight against disinformation again. So we'll just have to do it again all over again. Now, I just want to move forward to election. Um, I mean, July has not fragmented us, but at least scarred us. So I'll put John on the spot. Like, John, what do you think we should expect from the new government in their first 100 days or first year to do? Um, so, what do you think we should expect after election from the new government? And then everybody can chime in.
Sure. So I've been pretty outspoken on this and written a little bit and talked about it before. I think it's a dilemma that any political movement, any political party faces. On the one hand, first you have to win an election. So we're very much in campaign mode. All of the parties are gearing up. They're fine-tuning their campaign strategies, and they all want to win the election. Fair enough. But at the same time, those who wish to govern have to be prepared to govern. And this influences decisions you make in the campaign. It influences who you choose as candidates, because you have to look at candidates not just as people who can win seats, but who can then serve in a cabinet or another senior position. And there's obviously a friction in this. So my hope is that the political parties are all putting sufficient thought into how they will govern. And it's going to be challenging, and particularly in a Westminster system where there's not a long transition period, where the elections happen and then within a very short period of time the new government takes office. The new government, regardless of which party, is going to be staffed with people who don't have a lot of governing experience. And even those who have some experience, that experience is going to be decades old, and they themselves will be decades older. None of the presumptive prime ministerial candidates have any experience at that level. So it's going to be a steep learning curve. The other suggestion I've made publicly, and I'd reiterate, is that there are things that the interim government can do to help the next government. A unique opportunity that Bangladesh has is that this isn't going to be a hostile takeover. The interim government doesn't have any real issues with any of the parties that'll be contesting in the election. And there's no reason why the interim government won't want to fully support that next government to make it successful. So in the US, it doesn't always work out, but we've at least institutionalized our transition process. Ministries, cabinet agencies in the United States have very detailed transition plans and handbooks, and briefings are done and briefing papers are prepared. I don't think this culture exists in Bangladesh, but there's no time like the present for the interim government and the political parties to start thinking about what will happen on day one after the elections.
Please, everyone. Yeah.
About election, let me speak my mind again. I'll be very very blunt here. The 800-pound gorilla we are not talking about here. The issue that the presumptive winner is BNP. That is presumption. May not be as supermajority as many people say. Maybe a very hard-fought majority, but that is presumptive winner. I am not concerned about first 100 days. I'm concerned about the first 1 day. Is BNP ready to govern or not? BNP has the presumptive prime minister is Mr. Tariq Rahman. That is presumption. He's not even in Bangladesh. He's out of country for the last 16 years, and he has not yet shown any sign of returning home. There's no reason whatsoever for him not to return and see the things in the country on real life. So it's a mess, to be frank, it's a mess. The presumptive government, presumptive party, the winning, the leader is not here. He is for no clear reason, he is not coming back. And that will be, I am worried about Bangladesh post IG interim government. I'm very worried. And this can lead to much more chaotic time. Maybe the worst is yet to come.
I think for me, just to sort of add around elections, our guests have covered the key points. For me, on a personal note, I have been a little disappointed that it hasn't been the end of what I view as dynastic politics. We still see sons of XYZ, daughters of XYZ, standing for seats, and that gives me a little bit of pause. It is disappointing, but I remain hopeful. That's kind of my addition here.
Very quickly, I'm not as pessimistic or as paranoid as Rumi Bhai on this thing, but I actually share his concern about the preparedness. You see, like a lot of our expectations from IG could not be met mainly because I don't think they have got lack of commitment, frankly. These are all good people, maybe inexperienced, but these are all mostly these are good people, but they didn't have any lack of commitment, including Dr. Yunus. But I think like statecraft is a different thing, and just because they didn't have it, these bureaucrats they actually take the upper hand and they start controlling. In last 15 years, in last 15 months, we have seen the country is not run by the advisors. They have been done by the bureaucrats. And not necessarily they are kind of bureaucrats very close to like Sheikh Hasina's own team, but there are a lot, the bureaucracy itself is a kind of, it has become itself is a class. So it's almost kind of army runs Pakistan, so something like bureaucracy runs Bangladesh. And this kind of Frankenstein will also be actually feasting its muscle even in BNP government, because most of the ministers will be very new. They don't have any experience, like what Rumi Bhai has said. And this is going to be a kind of, and I still believe that Tarek Jia or some of the senior leadership of BNP are at least committed to get some results, because at the end of the day, they know how, like, this is not going to be another kind of, like, there will be caretaker government. If the government becomes unpopular in 3 to 4 years, they will have to pay a heavy political price. But unless they tame the bureaucracy and like bring the bureaucracy directly under their control to address their aspiration of people and political aspiration, I don't think it is going to be very easy time. On that count, I actually share Rumi Bhai's kind of concern.
The bureaucracy is no longer the bureaucracy we used to have, those CSP class, those elite bureaucratic class. Whatever they, at the end of the day, they had the best interest in the country, that they used to be very efficient, very well trained, very well articulated, very powerful. Even the people, the folks of Amalik, the bureaucrat, Mushir Rahman, and HT Imam, or even M. Kalamgir, and all kind of bureaucrats, they have been great students, great officers, great bureaucrats. But last 16, 17 years of partisan recruiting, political recruiting, we have got the most, not the best, not even the optimal quality students in the bureaucracy. The partisan, they went up, all corruption. So we don't have the most efficient people in the top echelons of the government. So now we have some folks who will bend their knee to the political will. Even they will run the show, but they will do their self-serving job. So that bureaucracy is gone. Now we have this a very weak bureaucracy, and they are not principled. They are very vulnerable to politically manipulated, motivated. So this bureaucracy, they are in control, but they are bad elements.
So, Rumi bhai, just a quick question on that. From an activist standpoint, we can hold our politicians accountable, but given the challenges with the bureaucracy, what can Bangladeshis do? What can activists from different domains do to challenge some of these issues with the bureaucracy, with the inefficiencies, with the corruption, with the inability or unwillingness to reform, right? Because reform is such a big agenda item, and we have continuously been hearing that the biggest barrier to reforms has been the bureaucracy. Because, like Fahim Bhai was saying earlier, as an entrepreneur, he sees the bureaucracy becoming a fifth column almost to our democratic framework and system, because they have become so powerful over the last 15 years. And it doesn't seem like it's something that can be resolved quickly or easily. So just wanted to hear from you what your thoughts are on what we can do as activists to challenge some of these issues with the bureaucracy.
We have to do the hard work. We have to go the long, hard path. Like, we all are now everybody here, we all are very social media savvy. We're in social media. We're giving opinions. 1 second Facebook status, 1 second tweet. We write our opinion. We are done activism. We need to do the hard work. We need to be a watchdog, systematically take on a ministry, make a think tank, make a group, and you focus on education ministry, their activities, their corruption, their irregularities, their missteps. You document it, you publish it, you chart it, you archive it, every point by point. Go after each government wing and document their missteps, document their crime, corruptions, and present it. This is a hard work. Nowadays, data is available online. Data, all government data is available, or even on the ground people, they can collect data. But we need to painstakingly collect all the data, and we have to focus on each individual department. Like Abid said that HDI Port Bangladesh corruption is gone. Corruption is not gone. Corruption is as pervasive, as rampant as it ever been. I have been to Bangladesh in last 1 year for personal reason. You cannot go to any government office without paying bribe. Bribe rate has gone up. You go to any government office, any ministry, any Rajuk, any office, the corruption is as rampant, as pervasive. Chittagong port has given to public. That started to happen, but Chittagong port corruption will not stop overnight. Every day called gate captain, every gate controlled by some people, the government, they control the gates. Every gate is corruption, corruption, corruption. Chirampur is the most corrupt place. Corruption has gone down? No, corruption will not go down. Corruption is everywhere. We need to document them in an objective way. We have to be less subjective and more objective. That's why we need to archive and document and present the data. That is the hard work. That's the non-sexy work.
So how can like the civic society, I know you talked about how civic society has to play a very critical role, but for Bangladesh, the Bangladeshi civic society is very underdeveloped, right? So for instance, if we're talking about education, healthcare, infrastructure, or even civic bureaucracy, right? So these are core areas that need significant change, reforms. So how can we tie together the civic society with each of these specific areas in terms of forcing them to abide by some of the reforms that has been agreed upon, right, as part of the July Charter. Just wanted your thought on that.
First thing, civic society, it need to rebuild itself, it need to reclaim itself. Society has been destroyed, it's been vacant. First job, they have to reclaim themselves, make themselves respectable, make themselves a more forceful, make themselves respected, and make themselves active. That's the first job. First job duty is to rebrand themselves as a respectable body and reclaim themselves. Then civil society can do that job, like be non-partisan, be issue specific. Again, issue specific and bring on data.
I just wanted to ask Shamaruk, I know given your expertise, how do you think the civic society can play an active role specifically for reforms? For instance, I know you're passionate about women's rights and environment. So stuff like that, how can the diaspora and the civic society in Bangladesh collaborate to kind of hold the nation accountable for some of these reforms?
I think Fahim Bhai probably has the most experience with this, because I feel like the Nagori Coalition's leadership has really been valuable in all of this. But some of the examples can be taken from right there. Like there's been a lot of discussions that are publicized with press in the room about what the citizens' voices are saying. There have been petitions to the government about specific things. And then also direct meetings with certain people within the government to pressure them. And I think that having multi-stakeholder coalitions is really important. So it can't be all like people from a certain background. Like if you go in with this, civil society leader from an NGO, when a business leader, and someone with a completely different background, like maybe an entrepreneur or like people from different backgrounds, both in terms of socioeconomic class and in terms of their professions, I think is really powerful in holding politicians accountable, so that they can see this is a broad-based pressure group, not just coming from one side. But I defer to Fahim Bhai if you have any kind of lessons from your work as well, and how you see this progress.
All right. Just for the sake of moderating, Fahim Bhai, you have 2 minutes. Then we'll go to the last topic and then to the questions from our audience.
Sure. For some of you and probably most of you, are not aware. We just had a probably massive earthquake in last 3 to 4 minutes. So you will actually see it in the social media very soon.
I already got some messages. Everything okay? Is it good?
Yes, so far it is okay. So there has not been any big aftershock. But that was quite massive. Anyway, so I just wanted to say, like, of course, civil society has a very important role to play, but also we should keep that in mind that civil society cannot actually cannot work on its own. Media also needs to kind of have a complementary role. And we have seen, frankly, some of the leading newspapers or media groups, let me name some of them, Protomalo, Daily Star, and all those. So they have been a part of the civil society for last 20, 30 years. Of course, there are a lot of criticism and whatever, and that because of that criticism, they are under huge pressure. And I'm not very sure post-election whether they will try to have their kind of strong opinion on a lot of issues, particularly criticizing government, because they have their own kind of part in the kind of support of the regime in last 15 16 20 years. So and also the rest of the media are so corporatized, they will also be kind of collaborating with lot of the issues, big scale corruption and other things. So this is a hard challenge, and that's why I always go back to the role of NRBs. NRBs don't have any financial interest in anything in the country apart from their time. They just want the country to flourish, to have a good democracy. So I would actually be, as far as civil society is concerned, I am much more willing to collaborate with the NRB diaspora community than the local medias. So that's what I just want to say.
Thanks. And it's getting late in some parts, so we're gonna wrap up soon. I know, John. I know you have to leave. Just some last parting words, and how do you envision Bangladesh America Alliance in the next 1 year? And everybody can say, and then will wrap it up.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and I think we've talked about a lot of the key issues. I think holding the next government accountable, trying to encourage them to act differently than their predecessors have done, and I think again, my organization is Right to Freedom. It to me, it comes down to these basic freedoms: freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of thought. If the next government respects these freedoms, then I have faith in the people being able to hold government accountable.
All right, Ruby Bhai, quick words and talk about Bangladesh America Alliance. How you see us playing a role, and what your parting words?
Bangladesh America Alliance in a sense of this specific body or in a bigger, meaningful
No,
sense?
our alliance, this body.
Bangladesh America Alliance, I believe that with new leadership there, that Samia and I have seen Samia work. She's extremely, and you all are there, Shahed and Mainul, is a bunch of very highly energetic, activist young people, passionate people. And I strongly believe that provided you remain objective, non-partisan,
Right.
and tolerant to every single political views of Bangladesh, you will go way up.
Thank you. Thank you. Marina, then Fine Bhai.
Yeah, Shamaruk.
Sorry,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I
Shamaruk.
agree with everyone, and I think that one of the areas where I feel like the organization really excelled is in the area of fighting disinformation. So I think that you should continue to do that because that is kind of a new phenomenon that has really escalated recently, and I think there aren't many other organizations working on this specific issue. So I think that's a strength, and you should continue to do that, but also see if you can partner with others and continue to put pressure on the newly elected government to stay on course.
Thank you. Fine Bhai.
No, I'm good, sir. So I thank Bangladesh American Alliance. I really look forward for its very active role in the coming months and years.
Right. So in 1 minute, Abir and Samia, what are your visions with the alliance? In 1 minute, each.
Right.
Yeah, so from my side, we're just looking to continue our work in the area of misinformation advocacy, and grow as an organization. So we're continue to follow us, continue to follow our programming, continue to give us feedback, and continue to support us by attending our programs, giving us support, giving us feedback. And so right now, that's what we'll continue to do. And build our alliance more broadly, looking forward into 2026.
Thank you. Abir.
Yeah, I mirror the opinions of Sami on this, but I think one of the other areas is also working with other like-minded organizations on core issues. We are one of those rare non-political, non-aligned entities, and we can be very focused on specific
Right.
being objective and specifically targeted areas. For example, for me, I think the July charter is a good metric to hold the next government accountable. So we would
Right.
like to make sure we follow through and put pressure and to see these reforms get done.
Thank you. I think disinformation and working, holding the government accountable, and also initially the Bangladesh America Alliance. We wanted to take the relationship between Bangladesh America to a new heights, and some of you know that we had initiated, the alliance had initiated a caucus revival. Like, the U.S. Congressional Caucus has been inactive, so we started this idea that we should engage with them for a better relationship with U.S. And I think we should continue to work on that as well. And without further, I would like to see if we can have entertain 3 or 4 questions from the audience. Manu?
I want to take a moment here. I want to say I'm sorry if I take one second time.
Sure.
I want to again reiterate my appreciation of our friend in a way that our friend and Bangladeshi friend John.
Yes.
John doesn't have to do it, but he has given his all retirement life full time for the people, for the cause of Bangladesh. He has been bullied by Indian, all the EP people in the Twitter. He has been fighting a relentless one-man war. So let's appreciate John. John is a good friend and a needed friend indeed.
Yes. Thank you. And of course, John, and you all are our rocks partners. We appreciate all of you. We would like to maybe take 2 or 3 questions. So maybe in 5 minutes we'll wrap up. So
I don't think we have enough questions from the audience. I think
Okay.
just comments, but I don't see any specific questions. Unless, Abir, if you see anything, feel free to chat.
if not, then I think it's late and or early in Bangladesh, so we can wrap up. One thing I just want to finish on a note, some of them will be against it, some of them will be skeptics about it, some of them will be disappointed and frustrated about it. But Bangladesh 2.0, John, is not a pipe dream. I think the Bangladeshi people and the Bangladeshi youth will make it happen, and we'll all work together to make it happen. This is our once in a lifetime chance to make it happen. So we're all in it and together, and we are all in. So with that note, thank you everyone for attending.
Thank
and
you,
we
everyone.
hope
Thanks,
to
everyone.
continue. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.